block, and I'm going to be talking about what a virtual private network actually is. So let's get started with the first slide, which of course has a beautiful cat there. So what a virtual private network is, it's pretty much a way to disguise your location. So you can kind of think of it as pretending like when you were younger, you might have had, signed your signature as your parent, you got a slip from your parents, so you brought it home, pretended it was you. Or, you can kind of pretend as putting a disguise on or saying you're from a different location. Someone says, hey, you're from the US. If you ever travel abroad, for example, they're always like, no, I'm from Canada. Same kind of thing there. You never, if you kind of want to hide your location. It also has some other purposes, and we're going to get into that in the next slides. But the main premise is a virtual private network is pretty much a method that allows you to appear in a different location. And I'll kind of go into technical aspects of that later on as well. So, what are they used for? Well, because they can hide your identity, they're used by journalists, for example, right? If you don't want people knowing where you're writing the articles from. Another big thing journalists use it for is the fact that VPNs allow your connection to have what's called encryption. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but encryption pretty much means, imagine if I could see everything you were typing in plain text. You type the word I love cats, I would see I love cats. With encryption, it would look like a bunch of random letters, like maybe ER 5, 6, 7. I would have no clue what you're actually typing. So encryption makes what you type pretty much undetectable without a key or a way to decrypt it. Now that part isn't too important, but pretty much what it means is journalists can write their articles and they don't have to worry about, let's say, Russia or another country intercepting that connection and seeing what they're doing, because a lot of communications aren't secure. And it means people can't eavesdrop and see what you're doing. Another great use is if you ever go to a coffee shop, right? If you're using that open Wi-Fi. When you're using open Wi-Fi, it's that same premise. Everything you type, if you like I love cats, can be seen. And there's certain restrictions on that, right? I won't go too in detail, but if you've ever seen on a website it says HTTPS, that means the site is secure. It means everything you're doing is encrypted. It kind of does the equivalent of what a VPN, part of a VPN does, which is that encryption aspect. So when you're on Google, for example, your connection is encrypted, so people can't intercept that. But if you ever go on like a mom and pop shop and you're entering your log information, it may not always be secure. And if you're at if you're at a coffee shop, everyone can see what you're doing there. So by using a VPN, it encrypts that connection, so people who are doing what's called packet sniffing can't see it. Packet sniffing is pretty much just saying all the packets going to the router. And that may be going a little bit too in depth there, but pretty much just think of it as the fact that people can't see what you're doing, and kind of leave it at that. It also lets you access websites that you're not usually allowed to, right? So there's what's called the Great Firewall of China. Pretty much in China, they have a bunch of restrictions on websites that people can go to. They block things sometimes like Facebook or Twitter. With this, you can get around those filters and pretty much pretend that you're in a different country. This allows you to access things. You're pretty much piggybacking off of another country's internet if you think of it like that. And the way it works is, let's say you connect to a VPN. So what happens is your connection gets encrypted, and it pretty much gets sent off to some remote server. Let's say I'm connecting to a VPN in Canada. What happens is, normally when you go query a website, let's say you want to query YouTube, and YouTube has their website is hosted, let's say, in California. Normally I would just go directly to California. If I have a VPN that's in Canada, what happens is my connection goes to Canada first, and then it comes right back down to California. So kind of things do take longer sometimes, but it also does encrypt it. And Tor uses a little bit more of a sophisticated thing, but we won't go into that too in depth here. But VPNs do have many uses. They can protect what you're doing in a public Wi-Fi hotspot, like I was talking about, and actually you can sometimes get faster speeds to websites. There's a big debate going on about what's net neutrality. Net neutrality pretty much means that your internet service providers, so that would be a Comcast or AT&T or Verizon, they can do what's called throttling. That means slowing down your speeds. So Comcast may say, hey, we'll give you 50 megabytes per second, but when you go to actually, they'll give you up to 50 megabytes per second with a little asterisk there. And so let's say you go to watch a YouTube video, they may actually only let YouTube send you 1 megabyte per second, even though you can possibly receive more data than that per second, obviously, right? So by using a VPN, what it does is it encrypts all your connections. So whether you're on YouTube or on Comcast's own website, they have no clue where you are, so they have to treat it kind of all the same, because to them it really is. Of course, they can restrict all VPN connections down to a certain speed, but that causes a problem for people who are working from home. VPNs are also used to work from home. What it allows people to do is kind of get into their office network. So offices have these internal networks, and the only way to access them outside of physically being there is obviously through a VPN. So VPNs, like I said, since they can change your location, they also allow you to work, remotely as well. There are a bunch of free VPNs out there. VPNbook.com is one example. There's a ton of them out there. Most of them will have restrictions on how much speed you can use, but there are other sites that provide paid versions. They're typically faster. They don't have logs. Pretty much what that means is VPN providers. So pretty much to connect to someone else's server, right, to connect to a different location, you have to have access to some computer in that different location. So VPN providers are people with computers in those different locations, and they let you access them. But they do log everything you do. A lot of them do. There are certain ones that don't, and you'll pretty much get that with a paid service. But overall, VPNs are a great thing, awesome to check out. And what they do is they have a lot of uses. Let you get around firewalls. They can be used for nefarious purposes. But they're also greatly used for people's freedom. Protecting them, protecting prying eyes. There's the big NSA debacle. So it's always important to kind of think about your security. And VPNs are a great way to do that. It makes it harder for people to see what you're doing. Doesn't mean it's impossible. People can still decrypt those connections. Decrypting means turning all those random letters back into, like, I love cats, But it does make things a lot harder for at least most people. And just VPNs are a great thing overall. So check them out. Thank you.